Hello and welcome to December 2024's edition of What the Heck is Going On in the Denver Housing Market. I'm going to break down exactly what is going on in Denver's market today and stay to the end because I'm going to give you an idea of where I think we're going to go in the spring of 2025. If you're new to my channel, my name is Torrey Drake. I'm a local Denver realtor. If you need any help or advisory on buying or selling in Denver, my contact information is below. Yada, 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 all that good stuff. Let's talk about some market information. I'm gonna show you some stats and some charts. If those are your thing, they're your jam, you're gonna love it. If you're like, that's all confusing, don't worry. I'm gonna break down and simplify what all of these things are, and I'm not gonna dive into all of the numbers on these pages. I'm just gonna tell you what is really, really relevant to you that I feel like affects buyers and sellers the most here in Denver today. So this is this is December's update based on November's numbers. And most people, when they're thinking about a housing market update, they're thinking about two things. Are housing prices up or down, and how quick are homes selling? So right now we can see housing prices are down by about 1.6%. Why is that? Well, it's probably not going to shock anybody if I said we slow down every year in the holidays. And we can see that right over here with pending sales, which is buyers writing offers, is down 11%. And we can see that new listings, which is sellers listing their homes, is down 41%. So less buyers and less sellers. But despite that, I want to point this out. This is really interesting. That's a huge number. 41% less sellers, 11% less buyers. Those are really big numbers, percentages, but yet we saw a really small percentage of depreciation of 1.7%. Why am I pointing that out? Because that's a very negligible amount of depreciation compared to the amount of drop off we've had in buyers and sellers. So, what that is telling me, if I had to give like a 5-word summary of the Denver market today, I would say perhaps not booming, but stable. This right here, 1.7% depreciation, is very stable and normal and healthy to see in wintertime when we have this many buyers and sellers dropping out of the market. And of course, when we have less buyers in the market, homes take a little longer to sell. And we're at 29 days on average right now. That might be surprising. You're like, wow, that's still pretty quick. Yes, it is, which goes back to my original point of we are still in a stable housing market. Denver's housing prices are not inflated, because if they were, we'd be seeing a steeper drop off. And for you, if anyone's hearing this and thinking like, oh, of course you're going to say that, you're a realtor. Well, get this. In October, we saw 4%. That's 4% appreciation, 4% housing prices going up in October. So technically, if we're comparing it to just 2 months ago, we're still up by 2% because we saw 4% housing prices going up and only 1.7% going down. Okay, I'm getting too sassy and ahead of myself. I just really want to stress the point that the headlines and your great uncle whatever is probably trying to say like, oh, the housing market's going to crash and burn. Really? Well, I am not seeing it whatsoever. So overall, right now in November and December, and gonna be probably in January, a housing market is slowing down. However, it is still very, very stable. Okay, now one thing I want to point out for buyers and sellers, this next page here, I'm going to start to creep into where I think we're going to go next year. There's a whole lot of things here. I only want to show you one thing, and that's this right here, active listings at month's end. If there was one thing being the driving force in our housing market today, one thing, it is this. It is active listings at month's end, which is just a nerdy way of saying how many homes we have for sale, how many homes sellers have to compete against, how many homes buyers have to choose from. If we look at how many homes we have for sale on the market year over year compared to last year, we are up 39%. Now, let's make this really simple. It doesn't matter what industry you are in, what you are shopping for, what you are selling. If there is all of a sudden 39% more supply on the market to compete against and shop for, what happens usually? Those things take longer to sell because there's 39% more to choose from, and buyers usually are more willing to try to negotiate on price. So I'm not saying that sellers, you should sell below value. You certainly shouldn't. You should be open and willing to negotiate, but overall, yes, buyers right now are negotiating a lot more, but they're honestly less interested in negotiating a lower price most often. And a lot of the times I'm seeing buyers being perfectly fine paying a higher price, but asking for help buying their interest rate down. So this right here, I just wanted to point out that this is the biggest thing affecting our market right now. Whoops, sorry guys. Is that we have 39% more homes on the market for buyers to choose from for sellers to compete against. Okay, so that is where we are at today in our housing market here in Denver. Where do I think we're gonna go in spring of 2025? Now, if you're not familiar with what our housing market does in spring, allow me to introduce you to two of my favorite charts right here. Now, I love these because this is 10 years of data. I won't zoom in on the small numbers down here, but if you could see it, it would be going back to 2015 until literally today. So we have 10 years of data. And if you look at the green bar, which is just residential properties as opposed to condos, townhomes, just all residential, green bar, right out of the gate, really far away, you can see our market is really, really consistent, where the peaks are over and over and over again. All these peaks of when we have the most amount of homes on the market, this is going to be landing somewhere between June, July, and August. And all of his bottom periods probably wouldn't surprise you to be January. And this is where we are right now. We are at our bottoming out period, which means going into January, February, March, we're going to start to see this. We're going to start to see that number come back up around June, July, August. Now, as a seller, if you're watching this, like, cool, I want to time the market, you do not want to list at the peak. Because if you miss the mark with price or whatever, or our market peaks early for whatever reason, then you're all of a sudden you listed into a declining market. So you want to, if I were selling my home and I could list whenever I wanted, I'd be aiming for March, April, or May, around that time frame. Now, so that is new listing. That is sellers. So buyers, if you're watching this, when you have the most amount of homes to choose from, your options are going to be going up and up and up and up as we go into springtime. Now, if we go to pending sales, this is my last chart, I promise, which is buyers writing offers. So we just covered sellers listing their homes. When does that happen? Now let's go to buyers writing offers. When do we have the most amount of buyers in the market? Sellers for you to allure, and for buyers for you to compete against. Now, same chart, same 10 years, same green bar. We can see once again we're very consistent, and our peak seasons are really when buyers are out of the most offers. We start to peak around that same June, July, August timeframe, and our bottoming out being around basically that November, December, January. So going into the new year, I have every reason to believe that we're going to see what we've seen every year for the past 10 years, which is we're about to spring back up right here. This is not theory. This is not like, oh, my magic fairy dust makes me feel this way. This is literally data for 10 years. And it's very consistent. And I'm not seeing any deviation in it right now. That makes me think otherwise. For you chart nerds, by the way, if you're like, wait, what's that blip right there where things went up? What happened there? That is when interest rates dropped down a little bit in October. We saw a bit of a surge come up. Okay, so once again, lots of data I just threw out to you. If I were to summarize where I think our spring market's going to go, I think January through July is going to be our peak season again, with peak season being that March, April, May timeframe. So if you're looking to sell your property and want to maximize the chances of getting the best price and selling the quickest, that's probably when you want to be going. That does not mean if you're selling outside of that period that it's bad. Keep in mind, we're in our worst time of year selling ever, and homes are still selling 29 days on average, and we only saw 1.7% of depreciation this month when we saw 4% the month before. So it's not that this is a bad time to sell, it's just not as ideal as like the springtime season. So I just don't want anybody watching this being like, oh my God, I'm screwed if I can't sell in the peak season. Like, no, you're not. It's called peak season for a reason. It's not that every other season is bad. Anyway, if you guys have questions or want something like this put together for your neighborhood, feel free to reach out. I've got some strategies I'm super pumped to be rolling out for my sellers and buyers so that they crush it in 2025. If you want a no pressure, no BS conversation to see if we might be a good fit for each other, feel free to reach out. My contact information is below. If you dug the video, consider hitting like and subscribe. My name is Torrey Drake. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.